We're so lucky to have Teresa Annibale, who is a regional vice president for Evotech, on with us today, and looking forward to getting into all kinds of topics around women in technology, Teresa's background, and kind of what she's up to today. So
I was a guest speaker for a conference this morning. It's called Mastermind. It's a coach that I work with and have worked with for a long time, and he is helping small startup business people just start up their businesses, or all different types of businesses. And he's like, look, like, you have such a great story.
You're doing a media blitz right now.
Is that what that's called? It's intense.
It's a media blitz. Yeah.
You're going to have to coach this. And he's like, no, I want to talk about you. And I said, oh, okay, that's no problem.
So that's actually something we do with a lot of our guests, is because a lot of our guests they have big jobs, they have these big careers, and like they can't talk about their companies and all that, and like that's not where I want to really go with them anyways.
Yeah.
But they're used to that, like being in that persona all the time, and it's like, I'm going to ask them XYZ about their company, and it's like, no, I did that, I know what that's like. I'm not here to ask you the ins and outs of some secret information about your company. I want to know what makes you tick and why you're doing what you're doing and how you operate in that environment, not the secret sauce of that environment. Because I get that, like, that people can't share that. We're trying to go after something a little different.
I love it.
But
I love it. Well, I'm all yours. Whatever
cool.
you want.
So Teresa, you and I was thinking, the first thing I was thinking about was when you and I met, which I think was 2005, something around there. It's a little foggy, but does that sound about right?
Yes. I remember, gosh, I remember my first few times even coming on Qualcomm site. I remember the intensity of the work that you and your team did. The pace that we worked at was faster than any of the other goals I had supported up to that point. Because I had traditionally done financial companies, which their pace before was very slow and kind of stagnant, and everything was a change request. Change request took days. We had to make sure that it was seamless. But at Qualcomm, I don't know if I can mention that.
It's fine. Yeah. We talk about Qualcomm all the time. It's fine.
We do. Okay. Yeah. I'll try to keep that in mind. So fast and furious, right? That's how I think of it. And so when I was introduced to the account, you guys had just engaged in a very large contract with Symantec, and it was my job to make that contract be
successful
yeah. And your BVA to be effective. And I remember our first meeting, you're just like, we just spent a lot of money with you guys, and I need to make sure this product works, it's successfully deployed. Like, you had told me my directive from day one, and I was scheduled to be out there for a couple of years because of how many projects that we had to do. And quickly fell in love with every team member of yours. Like, you had the best team, and and still to this day, I pull so many things that I learned from working with your team, because there were moments of intensity. Your leadership was really good, and they were involved when we needed them to be involved, but they also delegated and let the team do their job. So I don't know, like, it was some of my best days because I spent so much time there, a lot.
It's interesting. I was on a call yesterday with a client, and a director level client, and it reminded me a lot of what that team and how they operated. She was so on point of, I want this, if you guys do this, we're gonna have a great partnership. It was like, this is what you dream of, is people tell you what they want to do. They're not, they're being very direct. This person was talking about how in their past they were kind of a little more crazy, and they've kind of tried to really hone how they're working with partners and vendors and all that, and you could tell it was great. And I told Richard, I go, I used to be a complete maniac, like with how, not that I treated people badly, but I think there was an evolution of where I started and where I got to, of how I worked with people. And, because the job can be all consuming, and you can get kind of crazy. Like everything is like, I need this tonight. I need it in 5 minutes. You're just like, everything is just so manic, and you kind of get to a place where you can, you know, kind of work that out, get a little more comfortable, and give people, a little room to maneuver and work better and all that. But it was pretty cool, and I was like, oh, this is refreshing to see people like that, because it is sort of rare. I mean, I still think it's a little rare. So
It is. But you mean you had a tough job. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean,
yeah,
between all the legal holds, all of the immediate needs that you were responsible to deliver data internally and externally, and then to your business partners internally, it was a nonstop. I'll tell you a few of the things that I pulled from my days of working for you was, and your team was, I now, a lot of leaders don't share directly with me what their initiatives are. And it's either because they're waiting to see some success, or honestly, they're not sure themselves, right?
yeah.
So I do mandatory, and it changes based on their leadership as well. So I do mandatory quarterly business reviews. And with my direct teams that I support, those happen either biweekly or monthly. But from an executive level, I at least once a quarter meet with them. And they don't get that a lot. I think that's something rare, because they've shared with me that there's no other partner that comes in here and really wants to hear. And I said, look, your initiatives change every day. I need to make sure I'm hitting the mark. It's not, it wouldn't be common for you to call me every single day, or for me to call you every single day. However, a touch base is really important. And we did that a lot on your side, because you had to report that way. So I had to make sure whatever we were doing, we had to provide you a dashboard with the successes. You were then reporting it up. And I'll tell you, that was one of the best lessons, because now I'm very in sync with the business. And now they're more proactive with sharing with me, like, hey, I'm hearing we might be doing this in 6 months, or this might be an initiative coming up, or this is an initiative we need to start working on. And that communication just flows so much better. So thank you.
I think I think it's powerful when people build that relationship and they're sharing the information, and you could really fire on all cylinders. But so many, clients, customers, whatever you want to call them, they hold back so much info because they've had bad experience with, maybe a vendor partner thing like that. So I get it. I totally get it. And you want to, like, you work your butt off to earn the trust to get to that place where they send you their project plan, or their, here's our initiatives. You're like, not because you're like, oh, I want to go sell you a bunch of stuff, but like, I want to go work on things that that matter to you. So the better, like, so it is a magical place. But we could talk about that all day. But I want to move on from that. But I appreciate what you said, and that means a lot. But I just wanted people to know that you and I have a very long history, and it's so cool that we could do this today and be able to talk again, because it's pretty cool. I that's one thing I wanted to do with this podcast, actually, was bring these, individuals like yourself that I've worked with and known, and be able to highlight, talk about the past, talk about the future, all those kind of things. So, but one of the things the reason that I really wanted to have you on is, every time I talk to you, we're always talking about Canada. It seems like Canada comes up, your Italian descent comes up.
Mhm.
I'm Italian as well, but not as Italian as you. I don't speak Italian, and I think you're closer in the generational. I don't know however you say that, but
I'm first generation. Yeah, my parents.
yes, first generation Italian. Yeah, wanted you to talk a little bit about, you know, the kind of the Italian, the first generation Italian in Canada, what that was like. Any challenges
Yeah. Oh my God. I love this topic. Okay. So you're going to have to keep me in line from a time perspective, but grew up in Canada, and I'm daughter of immigrants. And, it's really amazing. You would think the opposite. Growing up in Canada, I always thought, oh, it's United States. Like, it's the same. I'll jump forward just for a second and say the day that I moved to the United States, I was about 22 years old, 23 years old. And we'll maybe get to that story of how I ended up in the United States. But the amount of shock, culture shock that I went into thinking it was going to be so much like Canada. And I can't, Canada is so much more like Europe. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very different from a political standpoint, from a culture standpoint. So I was blessed to be raised by two amazing parents. I love my mom and dad. They like, if I said this earlier in a meeting, if one were to believe in past lives, you know, one thing that they perfected together was co-parenting. They just did an amazing job. As immigrants coming over, you know, I think you have to think about what they went through, right? They left their life, their culture, everything that they know, and came into a foreign land, had to learn a whole new language, had to learn a whole new way of life, all this culture, and then deciding like, what do we leave and what do we adopt, and how do we raise our kids, you know, because we were raised one way, but yet we're in this land that does things so differently. So we owe, you know, us first generations always say we're the screwed up generation because we were raised kind of like on the streets of wherever we were raised and learning, you know, the outside culture and then the home culture. But my parents were really great. I mean, you know, they were really big on teaching us some fundamental core values that I remember learning lessons as young as 5 and 6 years old, but it was really important for them to raise us with self-respect, respect of others, teaching us, you know, how to honor the dignity in other people. Lots of volunteer and giving. I had both my mom and my dad were both givers, like to the T. And also, you know, especially my dad, he taught us the power of being a free-willed individual. And what was beautiful about that was they didn't hold us back from a cultural perspective, especially the daughters of an Italian family. You know, traditionally you hear they stay home until they're married, and that's the goal, is to get them married. Where my dad was very adamant that he wanted us to be free-willed and educate ourselves and make our own money and grow and not have to have all these obligations that society puts on us. So I had a rare upbringing when it comes to that, and it's those core values I kind of take with me everywhere I go. But growing up in Canada, the other thing I'll share is I got to live in Toronto for quite a bit, which is probably the biggest melting pot, I think, in Canada, next to Vancouver. And it was amazing. I had friends of every nation, especially when I was in college, you know, you just meet everybody. And they were all immigrants for the most part. So spent a lot of time with them and got to embrace culture in a different way than I think a lot of other people did. If you didn't have that opportunity to experience that. So diversity is very big in me. It's something that I've learned since I was a child and experienced. And yeah, so that's probably, and I love it. I go home, my brother's still back there, he's a chef. So I go back as much as I possibly can and visit family and friends, and it's really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How did you make the change from Canada to the United States?
Oh gosh, it's really funny. So the very first time I ever went on a plane, I was 13 years old, and you'll appreciate this. First place I ever went to was San Diego, California.
Nice.
And I went, and it was winter time in Canada. And you know, I'm on the plane, first I'm on a plane, winter coat, you know, my mom's packed my bags. I'm 13, you know, figuring things out. But we land in San Diego. My uncle picks us up. It's a beautiful San Diego day. Palm trees. I'd never seen one. I was like, what is this? And the first place he took me to was La Jolla Cove.
Wow.
So never seen the ocean before in my life. And I just remember walking on the beach, still wearing my winter coat, taking it off, going, and I'm looking at the ocean, and my mom was standing beside me. And I looked at her and I said, I'm going to move here one day. Like, this is the most beautiful place I've ever seen. And, you know, you've got the beautiful people running by and jogging, and like, it's winter in Canada right now. Nobody's even outside. And my mom said, good, because when you move here, I'm going to come with you. And literally at 13 years old, every decision that I made up until the point that I was able to move was to get me to San Diego. Very determined, very persistent, even in like the schooling that I did, and every conversation I tried to visit. After that one visit, I tried to make it an annual trip to come out to San Diego. And sometimes it was 1 year, sometimes it was every other year, but I got to stay with my aunt and uncle. So I got to know I made friends already and got to experience a little bit of, it was summers, but got to experience a bit about it. But that was really the driving factor. And then when I graduated from college, it was really rough, Paul. I lived on my own in Toronto. I, sometimes didn't even have enough money to eat. Like, it is very expensive when you're on your own, and you get, like, I struggled. It's like, God, how am I going to make it in this city? Like, the jobs I could get are $12 an hour, and like, I can make that now, and I already have a degree. And at the time, it was like 98 or 99, San Diego, if you remember, was just starting to boom from a tech perspective. And it was very inexpensive to live in San Diego. And I saw that as an opportunity to say, well, I got to start my career somewhere. I got to live somewhere. My family agreed to take me in for a short period of time while I got my feet on the ground. And I packed 2 suitcases, and I had $300 to my name, and I crossed the border, and I just figured it out.
Wow. And your mom actually did move here, right?
She did. Yeah. Shortly after I moved, my sister came about a year later, and then we became roommates here in San Diego. And then about 2 years later, my dad fell ill, and he had actually served during Vietnam, so he was a veteran, and the Canadian healthcare just wasn't working out for what we needed, the type of urgent care that we needed. But the VA system happened to be amazing for him. So it worked out for his healthcare. And of course, my mom wanted to move here for a very long time. Anyways, so
I think I met your mom before. I want to say, I think I've met your mom. Yeah. She's awesome.
Yeah, I think at one of our work events.
Yeah. Or for maybe others that are either trying to get into technology or that are maybe in some kind of entry level type of gig today, like, what are some things that you had to overcome, roadblocks? How did you kind of, get to the next level? What were some things that you think would be interesting to share?
I remember not knowing what I wanted to do. And like, IT wasn't a natural decision for me. But going back to the days where I was struggling, I just knew I wanted to get into an industry because my heart wasn't set on one industry. I wanted to get into an industry that had limitless opportunities and was very welcoming to women. And one of my mentors in college gave me that advice. And he said, I can't tell you what it's going to be because you're going to find what your calling is, but definitely do that. So when I moved to San Diego, I was very bold. Like, anybody who I thought look-wise was successful, who was well-dressed, wore a suit, or was well-dressed from a female perspective, drove a nice car, I would literally approach them and ask them about their journey and say, what are you doing? I'm just looking, to enter a career. And I would approach people that, I could tell were open and friendly. And one of the things one of my questions were, if you were to start your career today, what industry would you go into and what would you look at? And it was unanimous that everyone said IT. And I was like, oh my God, I've never even taken a computer course. Like Google, Google wasn't even around yet, And I was like, okay, so what am I going to do? And so I had to overcome first understanding our industry, and how the only way I knew how to do that was to actually go back to school. So I went back and got a second degree in information technology. And every course I took, I thought, okay, I took my first coding course, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be a coder. And so I go into the coding course, and within 2 weeks, I was like, I'm not going to be a coder. Like, this is not. And then second thing I did was, I remember taking a DBA course, and I was like, I'm going to be a DBA. They make tons of money. And I was like, oh, this is not for me. And I didn't get discouraged, but I just kept on exploring, kept on having these conversations. And then about 6 classes in, I took a project management course, and I almost cried. Like, I literally went in and I said, what's a project manager? And I realized that it was the perfect blend of my personality, my skills. I didn't necessarily have to be super technical because that just wasn't resonating with me. And that's how I found it. So it was a blend of self-discovery, a blend of really talking to individuals and people about their experiences. And I guess in some sense, I was starting my network, right?
Yeah.
Like
the process you were networking. I mean, you were, it was before LinkedIn. You were just going up to people and saying, hey, what do you you know,
And
what's
they
your
were
deal?
so wonderful. Like I still do it every day now. So like not necessarily go up to strangers, but in the reverse,
Yeah.
I support a nonprofit in San Diego. It's called Solutions, where we work with juniors and seniors in high school to talk about, we help them with college selection. And one of the programs that I put in there was the Journey program, where basically it's a luncheon where we invite about 100 adults from different industries to come in and be paired up at a table for lunch with the juniors and seniors to talk about their journey.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
so we, to date, I mean, the last one we did, not obviously during COVID, but the year before, we had 30 tables. So we had over 300 people and students coming in and doing that. But I pulled that experience from what I had. And it's one of they love that program because the students are just like, wow, I didn't realize that, I love sports, but I could be a sports therapist instead of having to try to be a baseball player, and different type of things. So,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
that's cool. That's really cool. And it is daunting when you're looking at, some of these careers. How do you get into it? You think everyone's kind of got it dialed in and figured out, and they don't. Nobody did. They all kind of, so it's that, I think what you said that resonated was the perseverance, sticking with it, staying,
Mhm.
kind of keep grinding, looking at different things. You went back to school, to go get some more education, and which helped you kind of figure out, I don't want to be a DBA, or I don't want to do coding. And I think that probably was super valuable too. That's a great story.
The
So
other thing I
yeah.
didn't have to overcome, honestly, is because IT was so welcoming to women, in my experience over the past 20 years, so welcoming to women. There's always been an open door for women in technology, right? It's just more of a, getting women interested of coming into IT. I embraced it because my understanding of it was it would always be opportunity. I can always move up. So that was one thing that I'm so happy that I picked IT, because I really didn't run into very many roadblocks. And once going back to my Canada days and learning how to communicate with multiple cultures and multiple people, you'll appreciate this. From a project management perspective, you're dealing with a lot of coders and developers and engineers, and everybody is very either introverted or speaks their own language or doesn't want to be bothered. And so I have that calmness and patience to work with individuals so they're not annoyed or don't get annoyed, but we can still get the job done. And so I just developed so many wonderful working relationships with so many brilliant engineers. And I learned so much technically at the same time as, I would tell them, don't worry, let me communicate on your behalf. Let's share this together. And you do what you're good at, I'll do what I'm good at. And there's just something about that combo that worked really well. It just kept me interested in the job.
Yeah, the realizing that everybody has a different style, and how they get communicated with, or how they attack a problem or work on something collaboratively. That's if you can master that ability to kind of just switch gears for because literally everyone has got a different way of dealing with something. And I
Yeah.
think that's really, really powerful if you can adapt, and you
Yeah.
can just on the fly, because some project managers and people in general can't. They have a way of working, and you'll work their style, and the team has to adapt to the project manager or the manager. And it's like, I think sort of the new world is managers, project managers, and things like that. They need to be adapting to their teams more,
Yep.
and less the other way around. Because it's sort of unlocking their powers, if you will, rather than trying to just be like, here's how we do it, and figure it out. So what kinds of, you mentioned women in technology. Obviously that is a big challenge, trying to get more women into technology. What are some things that, I know you're trying to do your part to do more in that space and bring women in technology? What kinds of things can people do? What can we do? Are there things that I can do? Are there things that our listeners can do?
So that's a really good question. And it's something where I think of new things every day, to be honest with you, because was just having this conversation. And one of the things I do is I work with a lot of youth who are coming into the workforce or, in graduating, either both from high school and college. So I love working at that level because I love sharing my journey and my story with them. I love, telling them that you're not going to have the same job forever. And especially both men and women, like I talk about how technology really is our future. I mean, I think we all know that it's already ruling almost everything that we touch, do, act. I mean, it's everywhere. And it's just such a welcoming industry to do whatever it is that you're interested in doing. So, I do mentor a lot on that and talk about, finding your fit within an industry and making it your own. And, my one of the girls I was working with in college, she just said, I want your job. You have a corporate card, you go around, you fly everywhere, you do all these fun events. I watch what you do. It looks like you make a lot of money. Like, I want to do what you do. And I'm thinking, oh no, like so much more than that. But it was just so funny how they, like sum it up like that. And I said, well, listen, tell me a little bit about you. And actually she had a performance arts background and really loved to throw parties. Like she was a big, her family would always give her the task to plan parties and do things. And she was kind of like a natural marketing person, but yet had this desire to travel the world. So I said, look, there are a lot of companies out there that are looking for international marketing positions that are within IT. It could still be within technology. And, we should start exploring this. So we started exploring, we found some internships, for example, at Viasat. And Viasat
Nice.
had a position, they have an amazing internship program where I think it's 6 months. And every 6 weeks, you go and move into a different position within the company to do an internship. And it's their way, it's brilliant because it gives the graduate a chance to, get a feel of the different roles. And then it also gives them a chance to test them out. So at the very end of the internship, she was offered a job for an international marketing position, travels like 10 or 12 countries a year, putting on these big events, and her performance art background is perfect because she has to speak to people, that constant actress. So it's like, I love that, and so so she is in the technology field. However, it's really tailored to what she likes. And so now she's working with sales reps. And so she's really interested in getting on the sales side. So I still mentor with her and I talk to her about what it's like being on the sales side, making that transition, keeping it authentic to who you are, and kind of explaining how sales is really different, but it doesn't have to be, and how you can still be successful. So, I mean, that's probably one of the ways is definitely working with our youth coming,
Yeah, no, I think the other thing you said that honestly comes down to individual people, right? So it's like if you have somebody in your network that's needing some help, like actually spending time with them and helping them on their career search or figuring out what they want to do or going to the next level or whatever it is. Like it really does come down to, at some point, two people have to sit down and, communicate. It's so
yeah.
you have to work, you have to kind of invest some energy and time into that. So I think that's a great
I think
takeaway.
social media, to be honest with you, is probably my favorite tool these days. Like you asked what you could do. I mean, advertising, like the company we work for from an Evotech perspective, our diversity is going to be a big message that we're going to be promoting and talking about over the next year, but sharing that message, because diversity attracts diversity, right? So we have, I think 24% of our workforce is female and 24% of it is of an ethnic minority. However, we're 50% of our leadership is women. So there's a story that we need to share there as well. And having people from Evotech share that message will attract the comfort of people coming to Evotech. So I think that the use of your platform that you have here, TNT, I think social media and sharing just what we're doing right and what's working is really big. That's probably, to me, one of the most powerful ways we can do that.
Teresa, really, super awesome having you sharing the time with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. This has been such an amazing experience. So yay, I made it to TNT. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'll send you a badge. You get a
Okay.
TNT badge. And then also, this is actually the first time, I forgot to mention this. This is the first time we've done a one-on-one like interview, sit down interview. So I'm so happy that you are that person.
Well, hopefully you invite me back again and we can talk more about great topics like diversity and, the things that we're doing, that are different than other VARs, or even just sales, like all these great topics that we can talk about. But thank you, Paul. You're wonderful, always have been, and excited to be part of TNT. So thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. And we'll have you back anytime you want to. You just have to let me know.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Have a great Friday. See you later.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye.